Hello, MCU fans! Today's going to be my breakdown and review of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man tie-in comic, issue number 3. Of course, I've done a breakdown on issues 1 and 2 if you want to check those out, and I'll do breakdowns on issues 4 and 5 when those are released. Lots to discuss, there will be spoilers, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have a February contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, you could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. All right, so let's start with a quick reminder of how the comics fit into the overall timeline of the Disney Plus show. Remember, the show started with Orientation Day, freshman year, and then, of course, we have Spider-Man getting bit by the spider. Then the show jumps a few months later. We've now learned those few months are really jumping from September to probably February or March of the next year. Nonetheless, they fill some of those few months with the tie-in comics. Now, the tie-in comics, though, seem to only be a few weeks of that time. We'll find out for sure when issue 5 is released. All right, so on to issue number 3's breakdown. So you might remember at the end of issue 2, Spider-Man was pretty much getting pummeled by the Enforcers. They were crushing him. Now, the Enforcers first appeared way back in Amazing Spider-Man number 10, so they are longtime foes of Spider-Man. And man, the Ox pounding him face first into the asphalt was so painful to watch. I mean, that is concussion city for normal humans, at least. Well, anyway, Spider-Man finally fights back, well, by literally kicking back. And remember, in the last issue, Montana had knocked out his web shooters, but he is still able to muster up just enough webbing to distract Ox and Fancy Dan and Montana. And then I love this little She-Hulk Easter egg when Fancy Dan says, "Oh, my suit, it's a Luke Jacobson." Love it. That dude was awesome in the She-Hulk series. Hope we get to see him again at some point. Anyway, time to get out while the getting's good, because Spider-Man uses the distraction to totally bolt. But it turns out the Enforcers still got what they wanted from the battle. Notice those two kids are recording the battle and saying, "Man, that was weak. Spidey just ran from a fight." So yeah, now he's looking like a coward, and the Enforcers have knocked him down a peg. All right, so the next day at school, things are not going well, right? The kids are already saying Spider-Man's a straight-up coward. So Peter quickly gets down the hallway. He ducks under that hockey stick, wedges himself through these people. Then we see him literally jumping over an open locker. That's crazy. And he's saying to himself, "Man, who am I kidding? After that humiliation, I wish they thought I was that Hawk guy." Oh man, somewhere Hawkeye's going, "Dude, why are you bringing me into this? Don't be doing that. Don't be doing that." Anyway, after he jumps over the open locker, he then scoots through the rest of the crowd, and it's Coach Grayfield saying, "Sweet Barry Sanders." Of course, Barry Sanders was a famous running back for the Detroit Lions, but Coach Grayfield is like, "Dude, the way you avoided that crowd, that was a thing of beauty. We have JV football tryouts after school tomorrow. I better see you there." Man, Peter Parker trying out for JV football. That's crazy. Well, he agrees, right? Football, but I just transferred here. I have to study a lot if I want my college scholarship. So that's another nice timeline reminder. Notice he's saying he just transferred here. So we're still clearly in September. But the coach is like, scholarship? You want to talk scholarship? Football is the way to go. If you do the same thing on the field as you did here, you have scholarships coming. So gives him a lot to think about. In fact, we see he's very conflicted on what to do because that afternoon, he's now talking to Nico about it. He says, "Hey, Nico, say I had an extra advantage. Would that be cheating if I used it to get into college?" So Nico asks, extra like what? Being really smart or good at basketball, tennis, or football, or having rich parents? Because whether that's cheating or not, people do it like every day. So I thought this conversation was really interesting. Totally reminded me of the 1978 Superman movie. Remember, Clark was trying to decide, should he play football or not? He has the abilities, he has the skills, why hide them? But his dad, of course, convinces him not to use his abilities in that way. So really interesting conversation. We're kind of seeing it happening here. But then Nico asks, what exactly is this extra advantage? So, she doesn't know his secret identity yet, so he kind of lies. He says, well, someone said I should write essays about Uncle Ben, dying. But I don't know, it feels wrong. So really, that's kind of unfair because there's no way she can answer the question when he's not really giving her the full information. But nonetheless, she says, I hear you, that's a tough one. Only you can decide whether that's something you can live with, but it's not cheating. Then the conversation turns to Silvermane. Nico says, paying people off, breaking legs, scaring people the way Silvermane is, that's cheating. And you might remember, Silvermane and, of course, Man Mountain Marco, they're behind all the problems we've seen in the comics. They're the ones that caused the extra explosion at Midtown High after the symbiote battle, and they're the ones that hired the Enforcers. All right, so speaking of Midtown High, it looks like there's a public meeting going on about what the future for Midtown High will be. And the public is there talking about the fact that Midtown High has always been an asset to the community. It needs to reopen. And that means we need to pressure our representatives not to sell the land. Because remember, that's why Silvermane did the explosion. He wants to devalue the property and buy it up for cheap. And then look who shows up. Legit, the enforcers show up at the meeting. Yikes. And then Peter learned something interesting. He was set up. Remember, in the last issue, the reason he got into the battle with the enforcers is because Ox and the others were doing the beatdown on this poor store owner. Well, it now turns out that the store owner is totally part of a scam. He says, these guys, the enforcers, are my friends. We had a little misunderstanding over some money I owe them. No big deal. But then Spider-Man comes out of nowhere and starts beating them up. He's a maniac. Oh, my word. So yeah, Peter's realizing it was a setup, and he swung right into it. So now with the enforcers at this meeting, everybody's like, yeah, we're done. Meeting adjourned. See ya. We don't want our families to be hurt. And this old-timer sums it up perfectly. He says that was Silvermane staking his claim on the land where Midtown High sits, which means Midtown is what anyone who steps up to save it is going to be dead. So yeah, why does Silvermane want this property? I'm really curious to see what's going on here. Anyway, Peter now heads home, and he's realizing that Spider-Man is now viewed as a coward and a bully. Perfect Parker luck is working overtime. And then Peter's rapid healing gets a shout out because he says, at least I slipped out this morning before May got a look at me, and my bruises are healing really fast. And remember, we even saw in the Disney Plus series how he has really good healing. Osborn was saying, you're healing remarkably fast. So lucky for him, he can take those beatdowns and heal really quickly. All right, so then he looks for advice from May about those football tryouts. And she says, if you work hard for something, you earned it. If something comes easily, you don't have to feel bad. It just means you got a gift. But the way Ben and I looked at it is, if the universe gives you a gift, it's nice to share it with others who weren't so lucky. Does that help? And of course, he's really happy because that answers his question. But then again, he still is not telling them the real reason he's asking. So we see that he heads off to football, right, to give it a shot the next day. The coach is saying, hey, there he is, Pigskin Parker, my new player, which he doesn't really like that nickname. But anyway, he starts off doing really good. Of course, he has incredible skills and abilities, but he's realizing it's kind of cheating, right? And in fact, other people are going to get hurt as they run into each other. So while he initially thinks, well, they got pads, they got helmets, they're going to be fine, he finally realizes, no, this is wrong. It's wrong for me to even play pickup basketball with normal people. So I don't know why he then chose to show his inadequacies by running into this guy's behind. That's an awfully awkward position there. But yeah, then he decides he's going to totally fail at the tryouts. He does all of these awkward moves to make himself look like he's terrible and to make sure the coach will not let him on the team. And then I love this. You recognize this guy, right? That's Lonnie. Here he is in the main Disney Plus series with his number 36, right? And here he is from the comic. I mean, it's got to be the same guy, same hairstyle, everything. So maybe this is how he initially met Peter Parker. We'll have to see if they end up talking again throughout the comics, but I just think it's cool that he at least got this cameo here. All right, so thus ends Peter's illustrious football career. The coach is like, sorry I got your hopes up, fella. Some people just aren't cut out for the pressure of the field. And I love that Peter refers to himself as a mathlete instead of an athlete. And yeah, the coach is like, go with that thought, Parker. Go very far with it, away from my locker room. So yikes. Anyway, he comes home to tell May, hey, you're going to be glad I'm not going to join the football team after all. Turns out I don't know a lateral from a latte, and my brain can't process X's and O's unless they're in equations. But I thought this was really cool. We then realized that May works at a shelter. So Peter says, wow, again with the book and now an essay? I didn't know the shelter gave you homework too. And she says, well, our budget got cut again, so we can't pay for our grant proposal writer, which on top of the earlier budget cuts means, well, I'll be writing the proposals myself. So I'm studying up on how to do it. But yeah, it totally makes sense that she would work at a shelter. Because remember, in Far From Home, we saw her helping the homeless, doing this fundraiser along with Salvation Army. And of course, in No Way Home, we learned she's working at Feast. And that's, of course, where she met Norman. So yeah, I love the fact that even in the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man universe, she's also helping the homeless, working at a shelter. Very, very cool. All right, so then we see Peter is working on his outfit, and thank goodness he's cutting down on those webbing scuba tanks. Remember, he had 2 scuba tanks on his back in that battle with the enforcers. It was crazy. Anyway, he says, 2 web fluid tanks are too bulky. You think? Anyway, too easy for opponents to mess with. Then we also see something really interesting. He's adding flexible lenses to his mask, and he says that it will help me focus, what with my senses being jacked up since the spider bit me. Okay, that's really cool. So now we're seeing why his spider sense isn't always working. It's there. It's been there from the beginning, but he doesn't understand it. In his mind, his senses are just messed up. So he hasn't yet learned to trust that spider sense. Anyway, the lenses are going to help him focus, but also help him cut down on the wind in his eyes when he's web slinging. And then he also adds some impact dispersion padding inside his suit because he's getting beat up quite a lot. And so then finally, he's ending up with pretty much the same outfit that we saw at the beginning of the Disney Plus series. And I love that he's saying, maybe I'm not Captain America, but there was a time when he wasn't Captain America either. So we're seeing him once again idolizing his hero, Captain America. I think that's really cool. But then he realizes one thing is still missing. He needs a symbol. He has no symbol or logo there on his chest. And he says, what says your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Well, I love it. He comes up with all these different designs, the spider with the smiley face, the eye spider New York, etc. And he's trying to decide which one to use. Then after thinking about it for a while, he realizes, I kind of like this one, except for the smiley face. But then he realizes it would just be a spider, and all my marketing research showed that I should try to compensate for people who are scared of spiders. So I think that's cool. He actually did some marketing research on the best symbol, but ultimately he decides, you know what? No, I'm going to go with it. This is what feels right. So get rid of the smiley face, and now he has his symbol. And then I thought this was cool too. He says, if you try to force being friendly and from the neighborhood, it just comes across as fake. And your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is a mouthful. So I'll just keep it for special occasions. So that's why he dropped the friendly neighborhood and just stuck with Spider-Man. And in fact, we now see he is ready to go. Get ready, Queens. Spider-Man is back in the neighborhood and he isn't going anywhere. So yeah, that is definitely the same look and feel he had for his first outfit that we saw in the Disney Plus series. And now it's time in the next issue for a rematch with the Enforcers. So yeah, really fun issue. I just love seeing his origin being drawn out, how they show us how he made all the different decisions to ultimately come up with this outfit. So you might remember in the previous video, I went through this timeline for the first two issues. I'm going to do the same thing for the third issue. We'll jump through this really quickly. We start with, well, the fight with the Enforcers the previous night, right? Then we go to the next morning when Coach Grayfield invites him to join JV football. That afternoon, he discusses the ethics of playing football with Nico. Then they go to that meeting at Midtown High when the Enforcers show up. Then that night, he talks to May about playing football. Now finally deciding to do it. The next day, he shows up for JV football, and of course, that was a disaster. Then that night, we learn that May works at the shelter, and he creates his first outfit, which basically is the one from the Disney Plus series. And finally, the next day, it certainly seems the next day, he is back in the neighborhood, ready to try out his new outfit and take on the Enforcers. So yeah, a nice tight timeline, basically 3 days, 4 if you include the battle with the Enforcers that carried over from the last issue. So now we wait for the next issues to arrive. Can't believe we have to wait till March 26th and then April 23rd. Come on, make them come out sooner. Anyway, I'm really enjoying these. Can't wait to see what issue number 5 is. Supposedly the cover is so spoilery, they can't even show it to us in advance. So let me know what your thoughts are about these tie-in comics, but I found them to be a lot of fun. All right, so don't forget, February contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook, and we have that membership option in case you're interested in that. And I always love to mention the Discord. Here we are in the official tie-in comic channel, where Hunter does a great job of going through all the tie-in comics, including, of course, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So we have 2,000 members across the globe, conversations 24/7, and I'll leave a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.